Hey guys, Dan from Stabicraft here. Mike, I am pumped to be here today to be launching this boat in behind us, the Stabicraft 2250 Ultracab walkthrough. Do you just want to tell us a little bit about how this project came to be?
Yeah, well, this all started about 4 years ago when we had a conference hosted in Invercargill for our North American dealers.
Yeah.
And we had a bit of a creative session where we all sat around a table and asked them if they could have anything they wanted, what would it be?
Yeah.
And they sort of came up with a brief of something that we had no idea how we would do at the time. They had no idea how we would do. And there were lots of conflicting elements that didn't really work together. And so that led on to a lot of iterative development, attempts that we then had to go back over and change over and over again until we got it right.
Do you just want to tell us a little bit about the two sort of big conflicts? So there's a style that they're used to over there with lean forward glass, but they're also used to a really common concept where you can walk right through the middle of your cabin. So you just want to tell us a little bit about that conflict.
Yeah, so there's typically, when you get to this length of boat, there's two ways you can go. You either go with the maximised interior cabin volume, which means lean forward glass. Typically that also means sort of cuddy cabin in the front, and the compromise is that you don't have bow deck access.
Yeah, right.
So the other option is for less interior cabin comfort, but more utility in the bow.
Yeah,
so
right.
those are lean back glass, less volume inside the cabin, but the ability to then walk through out into the bow deck and do what you need to do.
Yeah.
So we saw the benefit in both of those, but we saw that there was no reason why we couldn't achieve both of those.
Absolutely, challenge accepted.
Yeah.
And we got the US dealers back a couple of years later. We had some mock-ups and prototypes in full scale that we got them all around, and that was an interesting conversation.
Yeah. I mean, they said valid attempt, but it's not quite. I mean, it's good.
We hadn't nailed it.
It could be better. We hadn't nailed it.
Yeah.
So it was back to the drawing board, back to square one, complete start from scratch.
Yeah.
Some of the compromises that we'd made to achieve bow deck access were at the expense of other parts of the boat. There was frustration.
Yeah.
There was elation when we got it right.
Yeah.
But essentially now we've managed to I think we've actually surpassed our brief, because right at the beginning we said if we could combine all of that with a V-berth in the bow, the dealers said that'd be it, you know. And we did manage to do that. So
yeah. And you just want to tell us a little bit about the crowning jewel of this boat is the walk-through door. It's a very simple operation to use the door. We'll go through that in a little bit more detail, but how we got there was quite technical. Like, there's a lot of engineering that's gone into this thing to make sure it seals and operates like anyone can operate it.
It also has to be simple to manufacture. Not overly complicated with a million pieces that could potentially break.
Yeah.
It needs to be reliable, it needs to be hard wearing,
Yeah.
And it needs to be replaceable if anything was to break on
Yeah.
it. So we've sort of reduced the part count, I think, as about as much as we could.
Yeah.
And we've come up with a solution that's really robust, it's really easy to use, it's logical. People, when they're confronted with it, they don't need an instruction book. It's just, it is what it is.
I guess that's the key to good design, isn't it? Is coming up with a solution to a problem, but it's so simple to use. It's just intuitive.
Yeah. And there's other benefits as well. Like one of the dealers in particular, he was very into his outdoor pursuits and hunting and camping expeditions where they would nose up onto a riverbank or a shingle beach somewhere, and they would be loading their gear onto the bow. One of the challenges they face with the boats that they have over there at the moment is with a conventional swing out door. Once you load the bow up with anything, you know, it could be a deer, it could be a big chili bin, you can't then open the door. So that's a benefit of having the top half of our door slide up into the roof. It means that arc of an opening door is no longer relevant, and we can use every part of the boat's interior volume, and we don't have to worry about what do we do with the door when it's open.
It's a very, very cool design.
Yeah.
Mike, the 2250 Ultracab walkthrough, obviously 22.5 feet. Space is always paramount on any boat, and the struggle between deck space and cabin space is always a difficult one to find that good piece of harmony, but I think we've managed it with this rear wall system.
Yeah, I think we found the sweet spot here, Dan. We've
Yeah.
got a fixed rear wall on a 22.5-foot boat, which still allows for seating for 6 inside the cabin, but it's still got this big spacious fishing cockpit out the back here.
Absolutely, you can fish 4 people out here, no problem at all. And I think another really cool feature that we've managed to incorporate is the secondary helm.
Yeah, that's right, Dan. And it's something that makes sense when you've got a fixed rear wall. This gives you the opportunity for your family to stay warm and dry inside while you can pilot the boat from outside. With lure fishing, things like that, it's good for looking aft while you're piloting. And because we've got so much glass, you can still see forward while you're piloting the boat from out here. But you can it's just good without having to walk all the way forward and open the door. And
It's much better experience.
Yeah.
So Mike, these powder-coated optional boxes at the back here, do you just want to talk us through how they're sort of multi-purpose?
Yeah. So there's an optional upgrade seating package. So the standard boat has fold-down troop-style seats.
Right.
If you tick this option box, you give yourselves a whole lot more usability.
Yeah.
These actually double as a sleeping solution.
Yep.
By taking the backrests off and moving the cushions back. They sit in the middle and it becomes a full width across the cabin bed.
Yeah, nice.
Inside one of these, it comes with a porta potty.
Yeah.
And then there's a privacy curtain that tucks in alongside that, which you can hook up onto the rails and essentially turn this area into a little private room. For
your business.
And then the one behind you is just an empty storage box, which is just handy for throwing gear.
Yeah, well, as we all know, storage is an absolute premium on a boat.
Absolutely, yeah.
So Mike, arguably the biggest challenge in this boat was trying to keep a berth system underneath a walk-through bow. We're really tight on space here.
Yeah. So in the original design brief from the dealers, they basically at the end of the session they said, "Oh, and it'd be really nice if we had a V-berth as well." Yeah, like what?
Yeah.
So we always had that in the back of our mind when we were coming up with this system, and this is something we always wanted to achieve, and I think we have. So what we've come up with is a full width, full length, fold out sleeping pad in the front here underneath the bow deck, rather than sleeping with your head in the bow. It's actually round the other way, and we've wedged it so that naturally when the boat's sitting in the water, you don't want to be sleeping with your head downhill.
No.
So we've wedged the V-berth so that it's feet down, head up.
Feels a bit more natural.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more room at this end anyway, so it actually makes logical sense to sleep this way around when you think about it.
So Mike, a lot of people have been asking, why do you guys do the lean forward glass? What are the benefits?
Well, the big benefit, Dan, is just the sense of space that it gives you inside.
Yeah.
If you think where we're standing here right now, if this was a conventional screen with a windscreen starting here and coming back in a conventional rake, our heads would be pretty much touching the roof right now.
Yeah.
So just by adding lean forward glass, you're adding sort of up to 30% more volume above here, around your head where it matters, and it really helps to make the place feel big.
Yeah, and I guess like lack of glare and that sort of thing off the instruments and what have you, that's a big benefit as well, yeah?
Yeah, and especially in hot climates, I mean, you've got a whole lot more shade than you do with a much smaller roof with lean back glass.
Yeah.
And because of the walk-through through the centre, we've been able to push this cabin all the way out to the extremities. There's no real need to crawl around the outside of the cabin to access the bow anymore, so we've sort of done away with the need for that. And given the boat probably another 100 mil extra room than it would normally have.
Yeah, it just feels like a big 22-foot boat.
It's a huge cabin for a 22.5-foot boat. Yeah.
So Mike, this door system is an incredibly unique solution to a pretty common problem. Do you just want to talk us through the door itself and the operation of?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Yeah, this is we're pretty proud of this. This is the kind of the crown jewel of the boat.
Yeah.
We needed to come up with something that solved the solution of getting up out onto the bow without any of the sort of things that you normally have to deal with, like climbing through hatches and clambering through. This is a door system that when it's open, you can walk up and down completely freely with uninhibited ergonomics.
You just want to open it up and we'll just show how the ergonomics actually work with respect to walking through the cabin and not having to stoop.
Yeah, sure. So it's as easy as opening these two latches here. The lower half folds down to become your set of stairs. So that's your first steps incorporated into the edge of the V-berth or the footrest.
And I notice it's all self-supporting, like you can actually stand on that, it's not actually sitting on anything underneath there.
That's right, they're actually floating off each other and it's cantilevered in against the bulkhead there.
Yeah, cool.
And then this piece of glass is on gas struts and it lifts itself, goes back onto its stoppers. There's a couple little pins here which you pull out and then just slide the thing back. And then there's a couple of pin positions which you can lock it into. And then there you have it.
So the one thing I noticed is that you did that whole thing with one hand.
Yeah, there's just nothing to it. Like it's really easy. Like anybody could do that.
Yeah. And then stepping up through here.
Coming in and out. It's as easy as that. Like this. There's nothing to it. And coming back down, I don't have to stoop. I just come straight back down the stairs and I'm back in the boat.
Yeah, very nice.
The ceiling system is something that we had to pay special attention to.
Yeah.
Because obviously in a boat like this, the first thing people are going to think is, what happens when I get a green one over the bow?
Yeah.
Well, we've got big open scuppers either side of the deck, and we've got a 100mm threshold here, which helps to channel water out over there. But you'll notice that everywhere where there's a D-shaped seal, it's also backed up by a flashing. So whenever you close anything that seals, let's pull those pins back. There's redundancy in the sealing system. Once the seals are shut, anything that does manage to get past the seals is then in a channel and it runs down and the bottom of the channel ends up on the outside of the threshold. So any water that comes in, even up here, it runs all the way down and ends up out there on the bow deck and ultimately out through the scuppers.
Oh, that's cool. It's almost like a bit of a redundancy system for water if it should get past the seal.
Yeah, and I think making the door wide enough for a range of people. We didn't want to have a little narrow opening with a, I think we've come up with a pretty good ratio of dash space. This is a 16-inch sounder mounted in here. So, I mean, that's over and above what most people even need.
Yeah.
And we've still got this great big wide door.
So Mike, the bow area, it's big. We're two fairly decent sized blokes, so we're managing to fit up here, piece of cake. Do you just want to talk us through some of the features that you can expect to see up in the bow?
Yeah. So this boat, well, the target customer is going to do a lot of nosing up onto beaches, hunting, fishing, loading cargo and that onto the bow. So the first feature is the door. Because it doesn't swing out, we're not worried about that. We can put as much cargo as we like on the deck here.
It's nice and clear, isn't it?
Yeah, and then we can open up the door and move inside. But we've also got this platform up on here, which incorporates the optional drum winch. So that with the anchor fairlead and everything, the drum winch is under our feet here, underneath this hatch. It's all nice and tidy, out of the way. And then there's a little fish box here, just in front of the door as well for anything else that you want to store underneath the floor. And there's actually a couple of little drink holders up the front here too, which is always handy for a cheeky bevy.
Yep.
And of course, if you are going to have a bow loading boat, you've got to have a bow ladder. So down off the side here, we've got a fold down 3-runged bow ladder that drops down to the beach.
Yeah, nice.
And we can climb over the side and climb down off that. So yeah, you can nose it in on the shingle.
And the other thing you notice is that I don't feel exposed up here. Like it feels like there's enough protection. There's handrails, all sort of ergonomically placed that you can grab onto anything should you need to when the boat's moving around.
It's also a nice place to just chill out. Like if you want to kill some time up here on the bow, like it's actually a pretty cool spot.
Yeah, it's a very cool spot.
Yeah.